A few years ago, few might have been able to predict what is happening in America right now. But it is happening. Tonight we can report a university has been forced to halt in vitro fertilization or IVF procedures after local judges ruled that they will treat as a legal matter those frozen embryos as, quote, children. The judges say the embryos feature the image of God. That's a quote from the ruling. Now, this came out of Alabama, where two clinics in the University of Alabama are now halting those IVF procedures. The new court ruling suggests that the people involved could even be prosecuted. That ruling, like a long wave of Republican anti-choice measures, comes out of the Supreme Court overturning 50 years of precedent in Roe v. Wade. And we'll return to that in a moment. The ruling sending shockwaves across the nation as parents, doctors, and legislators see this Republican effort to limit rights, to limit medical choice, and now potentially to interfere with family planning techniques, procedures, and efforts by parents who want to have kids. Remember, amidst all this is a crackdown on parents who are trying to have children. Now, an attorney with the Center for Reproductive Rights does know with regard to this ruling, it does not appear to automatically create, quote, criminal liability for IVF providers in the practice of IVF or the creation of those embryos. The legally extreme ruling could ultimately be pared back on appeal. And there is no nationally recognized precedent of any kind for claiming that embryos are legally equivalent to human beings under law. And the legal result could include, as these people are worried about, the ultimate prosecution of doctors or scientists who work with them as, well, human murderers, right? If you take this to its logical conclusion, that would be the risk. And I'm telling you that without precedent, there are courts that might ultimately limit this. But in the meantime, right now, this is what we're dealing with. The IVF procedures being cut off to a whole community of parents, a university system and their scientists and doctors worried about potential prosecution, even with the context I gave you. And this is upending a lot of things in America. It has Republican leaders scrambling.
I think life should be protected all the way through.
We need to have more kids.
IVF is used to have more children.
Well, that's for another conversation.
Are you comfortable with IVF as a procedure?
I am, yeah.
I mean, embryos to me are babies.
Nikki Haley has updated what she said just there to clarify that she actually disagrees with the ruling. So that's a lot of different responses that we're getting. Haley tried to walk this line. She's walking the line that I guess any Republican who wants to actually think about a general election has to do as a political matter, the line between traditional freedom, reproductive rights, and the conservative base that wants things to go this far and be this limited on this extreme basis. Now, that's just the political side. There is opposition to all of this. This has been a losing battle for Republicans since the fall of Roe. Voters again and again choose to protect freedom, family planning, women's rights, human rights, however you want to put it, every place that this has come up, including traditionally conservative states. And we're about to see very much likely more of this. 3 states now have ballot measures to protect women's rights and freedom. 10 states are considering the same. Now, what about the public? We have to measure this one way or the other, so we sometimes measure it through elections. But I want to be clear tonight, before I bring in our expert, that this is not a close call when you ask American citizens. For example, over 70% of Americans support the right to choose within those first 6 weeks. There is no widespread movement against in vitro fertilization. People can have their religious beliefs, but there is no widespread view that this should be somehow banned, that it shouldn't be an option for those who choose it. And other Republicans are trying to soften their stance on abortion amidst this ongoing losing streak. Now, Trump has been all over the place on this issue, okay? He said literally every type of thing. He was pro-choice before he ran for president in 2016. Then he said other things. Then he said women should be jailed. Then he walked that back. Now the New York Times has an account that cites people with direct knowledge that say Trump doesn't want to risk alienating social conservatives, but he wants to have a kind of quiet support for an abortion ban this year. Now, this widening crackdown on freedom and family choice is even broader than what we're hearing from most top Republicans. Trump trying to do a quiet dance. Other Republicans have said, well, we only want to deal with abortion. We're not trying to get into IVF. But remember, conservatives claim that if the Supreme Court ended Roe, the era we're now living through, where people in the Republican Party are trying to ban abortion and criminalize its operation and bar women from even traveling for abortion, even if they want to choose to exercise the freedom we have as Americans to travel, to leave their home state. Amidst all that, and these efforts to also limit or ban contraception, and now IVF, remember, this is going even farther than conservatives said it would. There are conservatives who are doing all of that, what I just mentioned, and also citing these precedents that go against Roe to say maybe they should also limit the right to marry and limit contraceptives. Now, this is, I want to be clear, everything that the conservative author of the Supreme Court ruling ending Roe claimed very clearly would not happen.
Alito makes an astonishing assertion. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion.
When they would say, oh, we don't want a ban on abortion, we would say, well, it's not. This sends it back to the states.
If they overturn Roe v. Wade, that does not outlaw abortion in America.
What the Dobbs decision essentially said and did was return that decision back to the states.
They said that again and again. The talking point came from within the decision itself, as you heard our colleague read from Justice Alito there, and it was spread out all around. It was because they already knew they were doing something extreme, 50 years of precedent, and unpopular, as I just showed you. So they said, this is just going to be it. This is all it is. And it's just going to go back to the states. It's not going to be that big a deal. They were wrong. That was false. I'm reporting to you tonight that IVF procedures that are used to have children, if you want to talk about pro-children or whatever that means, are being halted. I'm reporting for you that women are being told that because they are women and pregnant, there are Republicans who want to stop them from traveling, from exercising freedom of movement, like we are in The Handmaid's Tale. I'll come back to that. So all of those statements have been proven false. In my job telling you the news, I can't tell you whether they were lying. I can't tell you whether Justice Alito wrote that knowing that it was complete BS, or whether they said something that was not true that they might have believed at the time. I will tell you, for the people involved, it doesn't really matter. Whether Justice Alito was dead wrong about the thing he claims to be an expert about and wields power about, or whether he was maliciously lying, that's an extra little sparkling, sizzling piece of hypocrisy that people can untangle in the history books. But for the people affected, which are so many people in the United States right now, that part doesn't matter. What matters is how far they are going. And I want to also be clear in our job here. We talk a lot about what's wrong. So I want to be clear about who was right, since I mentioned that some of these people have been proven wrong. There were people in this space and in public and in policy who warned this is where it was going to go. This has come up in the confirmation hearings. Our colleague Rachel Maddow has warned about the fact that this would eventually lead to the people trying to criminalize IVF getting farther down that path. I'll show you that in a minute, too. Sorry for all the previews. But then take Democratic senators who raised this when it mattered, okay? We're going to get to that, too. But first, think about what I mentioned earlier, that all these other decisions are now being basically decimated. And so they want to go from overturning Roe to overturning a heck of a lot more.
Many are worried that other landmark court decisions could be overturned next, including the right to contraception and to same-sex marriage.
Justice Thomas is clearly putting a target on the back of the right to birth control, the right to intimate relations, and the right to marriage.
The right to birth control, the right to relations, the right to marriage. And we can use the different words. Law has a lot of different words, but we are, to be clear, talking about whether the government's going to get involved in saying that if you have sex with this person, they're going to criminalize it, or they're going to treat you differently, or if you marry this person. And what the heck is the government in 2024 doing, potentially trying to get involved in who you do or don't have sex with or love or marry, right? Aren't we past that? Well, apparently, maybe not. And what's the government doing, getting involved in saying that because a person on a court thinks an embryo has the face of God, that now no one can do that kind of family planning and have kids that way? The last voice you just heard there was the person who actually, I should note, won the Supreme Court case establishing the right to marry and marriage equality. And he was accurately quoting how Justice Thomas has urged this increasingly conservative court to reconsider, that's judicial speech for overturn, and end those other rights, including potentially women accessing contraception. Where is the bottom? Where is the end? Where is the floor? All I could tell you tonight is it's a lot farther down than Alito claimed. And Justice Alito has gone from those claims that his rulings are so limited to now saying, well, he wants to lay groundwork against the marriage equality precedent and bringing in religion. They take an oath to the Constitution, not to their personal religious beliefs, which they're allowed to have, but that's not what they're supposed to do in government. But now he says traditional religious beliefs will be, quote, labeled as bigots if you hold them by the government. That is why he is very concerned about, again, what is current law still, that people have the right to marry whom they choose. It's not the government's business whether the government has a view of the gender of your chosen partner. So this is where we are. I mentioned earlier I was going to show you more stuff. Here's some more of that stuff, because there's this whole history. The people I mentioned who warned about this, they were on to something. There was a United States Democratic senator who brought this up in now Justice Barrett's confirmation hearings, trying to make sure, could we get you on the record under oath during this one vetting process? Do you oppose or support efforts to criminalize IVF? Again, that sounded extreme. And note, she dodged.
Legal position, IVF treatment, criminalizing it.
Well,
would it be constitutional?
I've repeatedly said, as has every other nominee who sat in this seat, that we can't answer questions in the abstract. That would have to be decided in the course of the judicial process.
That process is underway. A state Supreme Court has now made that decision. We're going to find out whether the people, as mentioned, Senator Blumenthal, our colleague Rachel Maddow, many human rights and women's rights leaders were right to raise this question to try to find out, where does Barrett stand on something like that? And how far down the road are we going to go? Because everyone has the right to religious beliefs. That itself is in the Constitution. But we cannot live in a theocracy based on one religion if we are going to be a pluralistic democracy that has multiple religions. That's a fact, too, tonight. So here we are. It's happening. What do we as a society do about it as a matter of both law and potentially a matter of movement activism?
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so damn weird going on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security, make bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General, General, we need to evacuate immediately. Evacuate right now. Hold on. National security evacuation. Stand down. Check it out. The business operations.